With U.S. Marines near the Saudi border town of Khafji. Although the Iraqis were repelled with anti-tank weapons and aircraft, U.S. military sources say there are U.S. casualties. Today, national correspondent Catherine Couric has more from the Pentagon. Katie?
Faith, Pentagon officials say 6 hours of fighting last night between Iraqi soldiers and allied forces have resulted in heavy casualties on the Iraqi side, light casualties on the U.S. and allied forces side. There were reportedly 3 separate attacks in 3 different locations, each waged by a battalion-sized unit of Iraqi soldiers and tanks. Now, that's about 500 Iraqi soldiers in each attack. The troops penetrated the Saudi border around 9 p.m. last night. U.S. and allied forces were able to push them back using artillery, anti-tank weaponry, and U.S. warplanes. One Marine was quoted as saying there was pretty fierce street fighting in the port city of Khafji. That's the main Marine staging area. It got pretty ugly, he said. Pentagon officials, Faith, are calling these probes. They say the purpose of this is that Saddam Hussein is trying to test the waters, figure out our weak defensive positions, and trying to egg us on into a premature ground war. And they say it's no coincidence that this occurred the day after the president's State of the Union address and the day after Saddam Hussein's most recent television interview. Faith?
All right, Katie, thank you. Now we want to head to Saudi Arabia, where Rick Davis is standing by. Rick, what can you tell us?
Faith, the Marines say it was pretty ugly up there in that border town of Khafji, and that helicopters have now evacuated the casualties, the American Allied Force casualties in that area. But we have not been told as yet the extent of those casualties. Are we talking about the death of young Marines and other members of the Allied forces? There are also strong indications that not all of the Iraqis have been driven out, as was previously reported by the U.S. military. This word just in from the Saudi military spokesman. He said the Iraqi forces, which had made the incursion into Khafji, had been cut off and were being dealt with. That does not indicate that they have all been knocked out of that area. The interpretation we're getting here is that the Iraqis moved in hoping that the U.S. and allied forces would then follow them back into Kuwait and would then be subjected to the heavy attack by the massive Iraqi military force that has built up there.
All right, Rick Davis, that certainly agrees with what Katie heard at the Pentagon. Thank you. Despite continued Scud attacks, Israel still has not been directly drawn into the war, but the risk is certainly there. It's a risk that has not gone unnoticed by Israel's youth. Martin Fletcher has more now from Tel Aviv. Good morning, Martin.
Faith, good morning. Men and women fight in war, but sometimes the deepest scars are left in the children. Learning to live with sirens and war, a pick-up kindergarten. But older children, too, make the best of a bad deal.
All these bubbles are air bubbles. They're rising. The water has to sink somewhere.
13-year-old Leia teaches 8- and 9-year-olds basic physics. Senior grades are back at school. Junior high goes back tomorrow. But the juniors are staying at home and studying as best they can. In small groups, so if the missiles fall, they can be controlled. Here they study religion in a bomb shelter. And here a hotline for kids with problems. Many are most concerned with a giant oil slick in the Persian Gulf.
It was quite moving to see how children pity the birds, and also they identified with them.
Other kids called in saying they'd lost their pets, especially dogs. War can be fought on many levels, and the Scud war is war by terror. Faith?
All right, Martin Fletcher in Tel Aviv. Thank you. A reminder that